take some of the members of the cabinet out to dinner to say, and here we are, we're standing right in the middle of D.C., which, as you know, about over the last year was a very unsafe place. Over the last 20 years, actually, was very unsafe. And now it's got virtually no crime. Here I am standing out in the middle of the street. I wouldn't have done this 3 months ago, 4 months ago. I certainly wouldn't have done it a year ago.
Certainly wouldn't have done it a year ago. President Trump out at Joe's Stone Crab Restaurant in D.C. last night on 15th Street. The White House, of course, at 16th Street. And crazy, mentally ill, gender dysphoric Democrats showed up to ruin the dinners of all kinds of people at the restaurants. Not the president, but... And, you know, the Democrats keep saying, oh, nobody's going to D.C. restaurants. I gotta tell you, the Democrat Party, very, very severely mentally disturbed. All of their followers, practitioners. It's a tragic situation, really, for the Democrat Party. Extraordinary stuff. But this Joe's Stone Crab, this place that the president went, they've got, I think, their first restaurant in Miami. Their first restaurant in Miami. The Joe's Stone Crab. And Joe's Stone Crab, I think, is the number one most profitable restaurant in the United States of America, their Miami restaurant. Joe's Stone Crab, Miami Beach. Annual sales of almost $50 million, $49 million, $49,413,000 for Joe's Stone Crab in Miami. And right around the corner from the White House and from Joe's Stone Crab, the Old Ebbitt Grill, number 4 in sales nationwide, $40 million, $40,656,000. Old Ebbitt Grill. Last time I was there was a few weeks ago, actually. But the Democrat Party, because got all this government money here. What do we have? 8 of the 10 wealthiest counties in the country are in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area because of all the table scraps that fall off of the government's dinner table here. Isn't that amazing? Yes, it is. And the Joe's Seafood and Prime Steak Stone Crab had, let's see, their revenues last year, the restaurant that the president went to last night, $22.9 million back in 2018 when the numbers were last published. About $83 per person when you go there for a meal at Joe's Stone Crab. Oh, here it is. Joe's Stone Crab, because in 2022 in D.C., number 15 in the nation when it comes to revenues, $22.4 million for Joe's Stone Crab. Isn't that amazing? And what do the Democrats do? They show up and say, kill the Jews. You're just like Hitler. That makes a lot of sense. We support Hamas, and you're Adolf Hitler. Okay, right. And then they went out on the streets to hunt down Ukrainian refugees to see if they could stab them to death, as Democrats are fond of doing. The story out of the massacre, the horrible, terrible murder of an innocent young Ukrainian refugee, Irana Zarutska, by DeCarlos Brown, is becoming a big story, and the Democrats are very angry about it. CNN is not covering it. MSDNC not covering it. MSDNC is covering Jeffrey Epstein files. Oh, look, Trump might have sent a greeting to Jeffrey Epstein 20 years ago for a birthday book, whereas Bill Clinton had the language that was very creepy, like, oh, I love your childhood wonderment, or whatever it is. Very creepy guy. Very, very creepy. The Democrats are trying to kill that story. They want to kill the young woman, 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee, all over again. They want to keep sticking it to her. They want to make sure that nobody covers that story. CNN is not covering that story. The Washington Post is not covering that story. The MSDNC, MS-13, DNC not covering the story. And there are big events going on in North Carolina today because of the horror that is that story. Now, if she were only a career criminal, drug-addled George Floyd type, then the Democrats would be burning cities down right now. But because she was a good, hardworking immigrant from Ukraine who had a job that she was coming home from when a psychotic schizophrenic, career criminal Democrat stabbed her in the throat and murdered her, the Democrats are like, yeah, whatever, that happens all the time. And then they get back to demonizing Trump, I guess, because of the mental illness. Trump derangement syndrome is very, very real. So we've got that going. Also, I want to mention this to you because this matters, and I talked about it a couple of weeks ago. I talked about, and this is good stuff, good American stuff, and it has to do with the great Pat Buchanan. I'm doing the Pat Buchanan karate chop right now. The Pat Buchanan, the Nixon administration, Republican conservative, Reagan administration, thinker, writer, author, opinion maker, and Pat Buchanan, a guy who I've met many times over the years. And last time I saw him, we were having dinner together at a restaurant on Mass Ave here in Washington, D.C., and he's still just laughing and doing the karate chop, and great. His birthday is coming up, and Pat Buchanan, it's November 2nd. He's going to be 87 years old, Pat Buchanan. But he was sounding the alarm about securing our border during the Reagan years. During the Reagan years, he was saying, listen, we got to control our southern border. This is out of control. And Pat Buchanan, the Democrats called everybody a racist, and then they aborted 40% of the black babies in America year after year after year. And they're the Confederate States of America. They're the party of Jim Crow. They're the party that created the KKK, and they go around calling everybody racist. Then they say, let's exterminate Israel, and they call you Hitler. You see how this works? They honestly, they dress in Klan uniforms and call you a racist. They dress in Nazi uniforms and call you Hitler. No sense of irony, these people. And they use the words, but they don't know what they mean. But in any event, I want to get back to this, because I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. The great Pat Buchanan will be turning 87 on November 2nd. And he has now, and I talked about nominating him because a couple of good friends of mine had brought this up recently. Greg Mueller, my friend Greg Mueller, and who else? Pat Reep was talking about this. Great stuff about getting Pat Buchanan the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And I think it is an outstanding idea. And now a great Republican senator, Senator Schmidt, has now declared that he is nominating and is sending a letter to President Trump, Eric Schmidt, the Republican from Missouri. And he is announcing that he is petitioning President Trump to get the Presidential Medal of Freedom to the great Pat Buchanan, always a happy warrior, always smiling, always laughing, making fun of the idiot Democrats next to him, and they always freak out and panic, going back to like Crossfire on CNN and the old days. Pat Buchanan is one of the great patriots of our time, Senator Eric Schmidt wrote on his X account, Twitter. I am asking President Trump to give the Presidential Medal of Freedom to Pat Buchanan. And Senator Eric Schmidt then goes on to saying, and here's why. He said last month, Representative Riley Moore sent a letter to President Trump asking him to honor Patrick J. Buchanan with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Yesterday, the Senator Eric Schmidt said, I wrote the president myself to formally express my support for this endeavor. And I've got to say, honoring Patrick J. Buchanan with the Presidential Medal of Freedom would recognize his role, one of the truest patriots of the past century. Congressman Riley M. Moore wrote as well. And Senator Eric Schmidt, long before it was fashionable or politically expedient, Pat Buchanan was a prophetic voice on the defining issues of our time: immigration, trade, foreign policy, sovereignty, and the cultural war. He famously described in his 1992 speech at the Republican National Convention, and it's true, he was great then, he's great now, and he really is, and he's always smiling and happy and doing funny things, and the Democrats always freak out while he's laughing and doing the Pat Buchanan karate chop. And I certainly hope that President Trump listens to Senator Schmidt and to the other Republican members of Congress to get the Presidential Medal of Freedom to the great Pat Buchanan. And I look forward to having dinner with him again sometime soon, because he's a ton of fun, I'm telling you. All right, now, with that said, let's go to the crazy Democrats. They give me so much. They give and they give and they give, don't they? This is crazy Democrat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. And this crazy radical extremist Democrat from Texas went to private Catholic schools. You see videos of her where she sounds like she grew up in the British royal family. And then she switches on the ghetto stuff and makes it real, keeping it real. But Jasmine Crockett is just a ridiculous person. And she, a member of the House of Representatives, embarrassingly. It should be an embarrassment to the Democrats, but they love these embarrassments. They promote the embarrassments all over the place. Just extraordinary. But Jasmine Crockett talking about the police, who they want to defund. And in New York, they want to defund the police and open the jails, empty the jails, put everybody on the street. And then it's Mad Max beyond Thunderdome. But Jasmine Crockett on the police, and this one is pretty darn crazy.
I want to be clear that, law enforcement isn't to prevent crime. Law enforcement solves crime, okay? That is what they are supposed to do. They are supposed to solve crimes, not necessarily prevent them from happening, per se.
Not necessarily prevent them from happening, per se. And that's, Congressman, the police aren't supposed to prevent crime. You're supposed to have the Democrats perpetrate the crimes, and then the police, who they want to defund, are supposed to track down and arrest and charge, and then the prosecutors, they got the George Soros prosecutors who let all the criminals go. Just amazing stuff. The police are not there to prevent crime. You see how that works? The Democrats perpetrate the crimes, and then the police are supposed to hunt them down. Speaking of which, right now in New York City, there is an all-out manhunt underway for a psychotic Democrat racist murderer. The NYPD issues dire warning as manhunt launch for armed career criminal who the Democrats keep putting back on the street, accused of torching and killing elderly New York City couple. And he's an African-American man with a shaved head. Police launched a massive manhunt on Tuesday for a violent sex offender, a Democrat, and career criminal, a Democrat, sought in the horrific Queens fire that killed the elderly parents of a New York City Fire Department paramedic. Jamel McGriff, 42, an ex-con on parole with a string of busts, has been identified as a suspect in the vicious deaths of 78-year-old Maureen Olton and her husband, Frank Thomas Olton, 76 years old, found bound to a pole in the basement of their own home with multiple stab wounds after their Belrose home was torched on Monday by the arsonist who tied them up in the basement. NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch said McGriff is armed and dangerous and has a 30-year criminal record. Gee, is that going to be a problem? Isn't that amazing? So, and he's a Democrat. And the Democrat Party, this is what they do. They kidnap people and tie them to poles and basements and stab them and then set the house on fire, thinking it'll destroy the evidence or something like that. Now the manhunt underway. I'm going to guess more people will die before it's done. He's a career Democrat. The suspect's M.O. is to go door to door asking for some kind of assistance until he can gain entry, the police commissioner said. Investigators for the NYPD and our partners, Regional Fugitive Task Force, working with federal government, are working around the clock to locate, apprehend Mr. McGriff. And that's, this is your Democrat, but it's all perfectly normal. And they say, no, this is normal. Hey, do you want to live a better digital life? What about the news that a major credit card reporting agency recently had a data breach that affected more than 4 million people? This is a prime example of why it's so important to have products like WebRoot and WebRoot's Total Protection Plan. Their Total Protection Plan includes antivirus protection against emerging threats like malware, ransomware, and phishing scams, identity theft protection, and, for up to 10 devices, your VPN backup. Honestly, all this great stuff to keep you safe on Al Gore's Amazing Internet and your laptop, your desktop, your phones, for the whole family, for the kids, for your grandmother. This plan also includes up to $1 million in fraud expense reimbursement, 24/7 U.S.-based customer support, an elder fraud hotline, and even identity and dark web monitoring for you and your family. It's all part of their all-in-one product with plans for both individuals and the entire family. WebRoot allows me to live a better digital life. So let WebRoot's Total Protection give you the peace of mind that would be so nice to have in the wake of these evolving digital threats. Get 50% off right now because we hang out together at WebRoot Total Protection or WebRoot Essentials when you go to webroot.com/plant. Again, you're going to get 50% off, half off of WebRoot's Total Protection or WebRoot's Essentials plan. All you have to do is go to webroot.com/plant. Yes, sir. All right, we've got more crazy Democrats that are pro-crime. Why are they so pro-crime? Well, they love their children, and their children are all criminals. Maybe that's it.
May I suggest using a nightstick, officer? Get out of here!
Yeah, it's not like the police can stop crime. Just let the Democrats commit the crimes and then arrest them, and then the Democrats will demonize the police. That's America today. Let's go to the telephones, Michael. Let's go to Charles, calling from Fairfax, Virginia. Charles in charge. You're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hello, good morning, Chris.
Hey, Charles.
I'm calling because can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, yeah, I'm just calling because I just have a comment about what happened. I'm also upset about the outcome of the special election yesterday.
Yes.
And so what I wanted to comment is that, the the Republicans are doing a really bad job at outreach, right? So they don't really, I get all sorts of correspondence, text messages, phone calls from the Democrat Party. And I think and I assume that is because I am, my last name says I'm not white. So I'm thinking that, maybe the thing is that they already claim me as part of the Democrat plantation,
right,
versus the Republicans who don't see me as one of, somebody who can vote based on principle.
Imagine that.
So I'm guessing that this is an issue with the Republican Party because really I didn't even know about the special election.
Wow.
I only knew about it because of you.
Wow. I guess that is it like a back-to-school thing? Is that going on, back to school? Something like that. Yeah, because a friend just texted me a picture from, it's Libs of TikTok. And it's a photograph from inside a classroom at a school, and there are 10 or 12 little girls. And I think they're all girls. It's hard to say. But they're first grade or second grade. I'd say they're first grade or second grade. I'm showing it to Michael since he's got a young son. And all the girls are gathered in a classroom in the United States of America, and they've all just been given a project to draw transgender flags. Not just the rainbow gay flag, but with the transgender thing, the triangle thing on one end. And so all the kids have big smiles, the little girls in first grade and second grade. And every one of them has produced, using crayons or magic markers or whatever, with pieces of paper, the transgender flags, and they put them on sticks, like popsicle sticks or thing, and they're holding them up over their heads and posing for photographs by someone much taller than them. So the teachers have the little first graders and second graders making transgender flags and holding them up, and the teacher photographing them at the age of 6 years old with their transgender flags. And the Libs of TikTok caption says, "Best homeschooling ad ever." Best homeschooling ad ever. And I have asked Kevin Tober to post that on our Twitter and various other social media accounts. We have those. social media accounts. But the Democrat Party is a sinister, evil, pro-crime, corrupting children, sexual deviant party that shoot tens of thousands of people in the United States every year. And then they lie about everything because that's what they do. And Democrats do things like, oh, we care about Ukraine so much, and we need to take in refugees. And then the psychotic, mentally ill, schizophrenic, career criminal Democrat in Charlotte murders this beautiful young woman. And the Democrats attack you for bringing it up and call you racist because the psychotic, mentally ill murderer is black. And therefore, you can't talk about it because the party of the Confederate States of America and the KKK don't want you to. Isn't that amazing? DeCarlos Brown is their hero, and Irina Zarutska is no George Floyd to them, no hero of the cause. But they love George Floyd, a career criminal junkie, resisting arrest yet again, dying of a heart attack, and they'll burn the country down for that. They make a hero out of Sean Charles Dunn for throwing a sandwich at a federal law enforcement officer in Washington, D.C. They put Dzhokhar Tsarnaev on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine. The Democrat Party is unwell, and they are closer on the political spectrum today to Lee Harvey Oswald than they are to John F. Kennedy. They are closer on the political spectrum today to Sirhan Sirhan than they are to Robert F. Kennedy Sr. And look what they're doing to RFK Jr., because he wants to raise questions about our diet in America and the fact that all these crazy, in fact, I almost asked you to grab those today too, Michael, those RFK Jr. sound bites where he ticks off all of the chronic health issues and the chronic health numbers that we have and the number of kids that have autism today versus when John F. Kennedy was president. And he raises questions. I don't know what could explain this. Is it the vaccinations? Because kids, when John F. Kennedy was president, got 3 vaccinations, and now they're scheduled to get 72 of them or something like that. But if you want to raise questions, the anti-scientific Democrat Party that can't tell you how many genders there are will attack you and attack you and attack you. They're pro-crime. And, the ICE raids around the country, the Democrats are fighting against the ICE raids because they don't want to enforce the law. They don't want to enforce immigration law. They don't want to secure our border. They want the country to be unrecognizable. You remember Barack Obama said when he was elected that he marked his ascendance in American political life, marked the fundamental transformation of the United States of America.
We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
Right. And Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, lunatic Democrat from Texas, said police don't prevent crimes. They don't prevent crimes. No, Democrats commit crimes, and then the police, who the Democrats oppose and attack and want to defund, vilify, put in prison, stab 22 times, the Democrats and their relationship with the police. And then we've got this lunatic, the mayor of Charlotte, where this savage stabbing murder took place of the Ukrainian refugee, the beautiful young woman who is now dead because of a Democrat who murdered her. The mayor there, a Democrat, and a woman of color, said, "We will never arrest our way out of issues such as homelessness and mental health." Nobody ever suggested arresting our way out of mental health and homelessness. But the Democrats throw people out in the street to fend for themselves, to beg, borrow, and steal, to scrounge, to die on the sidewalk until we come and get their bodies. They'll be left there. But the Democrat mayor, Vi Lyles, an almost satirical name, said, "We will never arrest our way out of issues such as homelessness and mental health. No, we'll wait until the homeless commit crimes, and then we'll arrest them and throw them in jail. We'll wait until the mentally ill people, like this psychotic killer who murdered the beautiful young immigrant who escaped the war inflicted by the communists, by the way, Vladimir Putin in Ukraine, Irina Zarutska, murdered, and DeCarlos Brown, his own mother, wanted him institutionalized involuntarily. And the Democrats say, no, we put him out on the street. We release them into the wild. And then when they kill people, we put them in prison and we pay millions of dollars to incarcerate them for the next 50 years. But the idiot Democrat Mayor Vi Lyle says we will never arrest our way out of issues such as homelessness and mental health. Mental health disease is just that, a disease like any other that needs to be treated with the same compassion, diligence, and commitment as cancer or heart disease. Except when you get cancer, you don't usually go slash somebody's throat because you have cancer and murder 23-year-old immigrant women from Ukraine. Usually. You know, hey, I have went and murdered people, shot up a church where kids were praying and killed them and wounded a bunch of people. Oh, it was my heart disease. It was my heart. No, it wasn't your heart disease. It was you think that you're a girl when you're actually a boy. Isn't that amazing? The Democrat Party. And then it reminded us when we saw this idiot Democrat mayor of Charlotte say, never arrest our way out of issues such as homelessness or mental health. Nobody ever suggested that we could. But we do have to involuntarily commit severely mentally ill people that we've just thrown out on the street and wait until they commit crimes against us. And then the police arrest them, who the Democrats want to defund. And then we have to incarcerate them because we have no choice in a penitentiary, which have become, or prison or jail, which have become our mental institutions in the United States of America. And I will go ahead and say because of the Democrats. Although the Republicans will take some of the fall for this, too, although a lot of this started way back under the Kennedy administration. But Michael was reminded of the Attorney General of Washington, D.C. They have their own Attorney General. We have our own Attorney General. Brian Schwalb, who is pro-criminal, pro-crime, anti-police. And last year, this was his take on the world.
We as a city and a community need to be much more focused on prevention and surrounding young people and their families with resources if we want to be safer in the long run. We cannot prosecute and arrest our way out of it.
You see, we cannot prosecute and arrest our way out of it. Just as the mayor of Charlotte said, where the mentally ill, schizophrenic, career criminal, violent criminal was put back out on the street again until he finally murdered this beautiful young woman from Ukraine. And now we're going to have to put him on trial, and he'll be found to be mentally incompetent, and he's going to face life in prison without the possibility of parole and even the death penalty. But because of his schizophrenia, he'll never get the death penalty. And you got this idiot Democrat judge who didn't even take the bar exam, so she's not even an attorney, but they made her a magistrate judge, Teresa Stokes, who has a business, and she's the one that let the psycho killer loose on the street after his most recent arrest, right? DeCarlos Brown. And keep in mind, this political party loves Luigi Mangione, who murdered CEO Brian Thompson on the sidewalk in New York. They love Joker Zarnaev, who blew up the Boston Marathon. They put him on the cover of Rolling Stone. Democrat Party, membership in the Democrat Party is a clear sign of mental illness at this point. But this judge, Teresa Stokes, it turns out that she's the one that let the psycho, mentally ill person whose own mother wanted him involuntarily incarcerated, and Brown, 34 years old, Teresa Stokes let him go, said, hey, what's the worst that could happen? Now we know the worst that could happen. But it turns out that this judge, so-called, a Democrat judge, never took the bar exam, isn't even an attorney. The Democrats made her a judge because she's a black woman. And the black woman let the black man, mentally ill, schizophrenic, career criminal, violent criminal, loose on the street to murder this woman. And then what did he say, Michael, when he was walking away? I got the white girl. I got the white girl. Right? Isn't that what he said, the killer? I got the white girl. I got the white girl. But it's not a hate crime or a racial crime. And in fact, the Democrats and the media, but I repeat myself, are pounding the table, saying there is no reason to think there's a racial element here, except there are all black people on the train except for the woman that was murdered. And then he walks away saying, I got the white girl, I got the white girl. Isn't that fine? But no racial component in all of this. And then it turns out that the woman who's supposed to be a judge and her sister are owners of a business that takes in mentally ill people when they're released by the courts. Isn't that fascinating? And they make money off of this because they're Democrats and because they're women of color. You're not allowed to be critical, which is why Democrats want to put, people of color and LGBTQ, people that they think you can't be critical of, into positions of power. This is an extraordinary story. The company that they run lives off of taxpayer dollars, supposed to be helping people with mental illness issues. And I got to tell you, it's completely berserk what the Democrats are doing. And they're making money off of, this woman is making money off of it. Judge Stokes, responsible for making bail decisions or no bail at all. And this guy was released with no bail at all the last time he committed his most recent crime. And I am telling you, the Democrat Party, they love crime more than we love sanity. They love death more than we love life. Wah, wah, wah. All right, Michael, what is the, where we, because we had the Stacey Abrams. We didn't get the Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams is, she still thinks she's governor. But then she went and did an interview saying, I never told anybody that the election was stolen. I never told anybody that I won and they took it away from me.
In 2018, when I lost my election, I was never confused about it. I had conversations with communities and I would say we won. And that just would send people into these paroxysms of hatred.
Well, what is that?
What I was telling them is, look, not getting the title did not mean that we didn't make progress. When you were trying to defend democracy, when you were trying to serve the people, progress counts as victory.
No, it doesn't. And that just shows a mental confusion. It demonstrates a mental incapacity there that's quite extraordinary. And she said 100 times, it was stolen from me, I won.
And I do have one very affirmative statement to make. We won, but I didn't lose. I got the votes, but we won't know exactly how many because of how they cheated. I did win my election. I just didn't get to have the job. We were robbed of an election.
We were robbed of the election. They cheated, and I lost, and that's why I'm not going to get the job. We won. And then she goes on and did an interview a couple of days ago. I never said what I said 100 times. The Democrat Party. Manischewitz. I tell you what, let's grab a phone call, Michael. Let's go to Michael calling from Haymarket, Virginia. Miguel, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Chris, I am actually aggravated at you today because you have made me do two things that I hate to do. One, disagree with you. Two, agree with Jasmine Crockett. She is
this does sound
correct.
Terrible.
She is absolutely correct.
Uh-huh.
The police do not typically prevent all crime.
Uh-huh.
They are reactive force. They respond to 911, which means that somebody saw something. It either already happened or is in the process of happening, and chances are by the time the cops get there, it will have already been done.
Mm-hmm.
So Jasmine Crockett just made the perfect argument for citizen self-defense, the Second Amendment, concealed carry, and any of the other things that we as conservatives have been pushing for decades,
mm-hmm.
and which actually comes right on top of arena here where, 5, 6, 7 witnesses sat around this young lady with almost no response whatsoever.
Yep.
In large part, I'm guessing because they weren't carrying a concealed weapon at that time, and in large part because the last guy that tried to help somebody on a train or on a light rail or whatever else almost went to jail for life.
Yeah, Daniel
and
Penny
so
in New York.
I really despise that I have to agree with Jasmine Crockett today, but I do agree with her, and that's why I carry 365.
Well, that is very good. What is your weapon of choice, may I ask?
Believe it or not, it's a Taurus, which people make fun of me for, but it's a 45, and it's been flawless for years.
That's nice. That is wonderful. Well, I'm glad that you got through to disagree with me, Michael. I genuinely am.
Me too, brother.
Jasmine Crockett, and I know what you're talking about, and certainly the police can't prevent every crime and be there beforehand and be on the spot for every crime that Democrats commit. All of that is true. But a police presence, police being visible, police knowing the neighborhood, police knowing who the bad guys are, arresting people when they, the broken windows policing theory, right, Michael?
No, I agree with you 1,000%. But by the same token, we must illustrate their own stupidity via their own stupidity.
That seems fair. Thank you, Michael. That's good stuff. Yeah, and Michael's correct, of course. And Jasmine talked to him and said, he's right. Chris is wrong. So let's talk to Michael. And it's true. Point well made, Michael, and I appreciate that. And it's true. But you, Rudy Giuliani in New York, broken windows policing. You get him for the little crimes, and that way the murder rate goes down, the looting, arson, armed robbery, the gun crimes go down, because you get the bad guys early and you take them off the streets. And that's how you prevent crime, by aggressive policing, active policing, and broken windows policing.
Maybe because these people, they are crazy, because they always talk about how Christian they is.
Yeah, it's true that non-attorney judge, magistrate judge, that let the killer go in Charlotte so that he could kill, running that corrupt business with her sister. I'm not sure if her wife is involved in the business or not, but her wife may be involved in the business as well. It's all a Democrat thing. The Politico newspaper in Washington. My friend Marty sent this great thing along from a tweet from Christina Pashaw. Breaking news, murder is wrong, and suggesting murder is wrong, is now a culture war issue, according to Politico, the newspaper, right? And they've got an article on the murder. They don't show a picture of the woman murdered. They don't show a picture of the perpetrator. The only picture is a picture of Donald Trump. A young refugee from Ukraine who was killed in an apparent random attack in North Carolina is being pulled into America's culture war. Yeah. Irina Zarutska, who was stabbed on a light rail train in Charlotte. The Democrats, everything is a political fight. They have no regard for human life whatsoever. They are the left.